Okay, fully assembled. Just going to cover a few things. The best way to get the 4 screws into this gantry assembly appears to be, and this is what I did, I laid the base on its left side where there is nothing, rather than this side where you've got switches and ports, and then just laid the gantry just down onto the surface here with this halfway or fully up. It comes fully up, and that's how I installed it. The instructions suggest it should be, positioned in the mid range area, but lining that up with this and the side allowed that to go in very easily, finger tight, and then the other side exactly the same. You might need to flex this out just slightly as it's lying on its side to put the 2 screws in each side. Again, I've just nipped those up, and then once it was all obviously okay, just tightened them down. And strangely, I'm going to just push this back fully onto the surface, but once those screws were all tightened up, it has leveled the base out completely. There is no movement there whatsoever. So that was those 4 screws. We've got 2 support rods. The washer goes to the bottom here on the inside. That is the shorter screw, the shorter screw at the top, the longer screw at the bottom, and then obviously that is the same both sides. These were perfectly adjusted from the factory. No reason for me to touch any of that, but if it is not quite right, you can loosen the lock nuts and adjust accordingly. What else do we have? Yeah, you'll find the cables are held in place originally with these cloth sticky tape. You're going to need to reuse it to hold these down, because if you don't, you can get these sockets catching the wheels. So I'll keep an eye on that. Same the other side, just that cable has been stuck down with the original cloth tape. So no particular issues there. This flat ribbon cable was quite straightforward to route up through here with the various, the 2 connections, motor and the X. It's not really held very securely in this plastic clip, but I think it does the job. That is the correct position. That's where the label says make sure the clip is positioned here. I've pulled the label off and then just popped it into the clip. Again here, 2 small screws to remove. That plastic piece comes off, and then, rather like the IDE type cables you used to get on computers, that slots in only one way around because there's a little lug that locates. Push it in. 2 screws gently nipped up. There's 3 screws that you need to do up to hold this complete hot end in place. Again, just nip these up firmly. If you do not over tighten them, because you're going to have masses of problems if you ever strip out a thread of these. It's all one unit, and I've no idea what replacement parts are available for this. Yeah, make sure, as it says on here, you do not poke this. This is not metal, it's not a handle, it is a strip of plastic, and that will break very easily. If you're a mechanic as well as into electronics, your first instinct will be to tighten the screws that hold this down, but don't, because they're not supposed to be tight. This obviously is for the spool and the filament out sensor, and it obviously needs to float around up, down, left and right as the filament moves around on its holder. The holder just clips in place, and it will unclip as well if required, but don't make the mistake I made by trying to tighten these screws up. It seems to me that that is not what they are for at all. It's got to be free floating. What else have we got tip wise? Yeah, you will find the label that was on there may well leave some residue behind. If that's the case, just use the same label and dab it on to the residue that's left behind, and it will all come off. And the reason I say that, this plastic is slight, it's not totally smooth and shiny, it's got a slight roughness to it, and if you start rubbing it with rough old fingers or you know, cloths, you may well mark that, and I didn't particularly want to mark anything at this brand new stage. The film I've taken off of the screen, there are 3, shall I take it off? No, I'm not going to. There are 3, was it 4? Hang on, let's take it off, just lift it up and pull it out. Okay, there's 3. You can see those raised bits. The plastic of the screen, I suspect, is going to be quite fragile. You do not want to be knocking this or bending it the wrong way or catching it with your arm, so just be careful with that. I suspect the plastic of the housing could easily break, leaving you with a display that's just flapping around. Again, do not rub this with your rough fingers, you will mark the screen. Just a very soft cloth just to wipe off anything there. So yeah, really we're at the calibration, well, first power on stage now. I've fed the mains in through the back. I always pat test these mains cables before they're put into use to make sure they've been wired correctly and that there's no issues. We have had a mains cable, i.e. C cable, that had a internal short in it from where it was made at the factory, so I do not want to risk using a dodgy mains cable with this. So other than removing all of these labels, now they really have used the sticky material. I don't think that's going to focus, unfortunately, but if it does leave any residue behind, like that one did just then, just dab on gently with the label and you will get the whole lot off. There was a label here, an important label, this one, 3 seconds. Let's get that away from there. Focus. Long press for 3 seconds to power on. It's not intended for shutdown. For firmware updating, long press for 30 seconds. Other than that, see the manual. There's a good example of leaving a residue behind. Again, if you just use the label you've pulled off, you will take all that residue off and not risk marking any of it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We're going to plug it in, power it up, just make sure everything is okay. We'll put it through its range of movements. Oh, there was one other tip. Do check these sockets for any bent pins. I think on this side I noticed the pins were bent. If I just grabbed the plug and slammed it in and pressed hard, I would have had a number of pins just totally bent over. So do check all of the sockets for bent pins before you go popping the plugs in. I'm sure it's rare, but pins are easily bent. Yeah, other than that, very straightforward process. Not sure what that bit's for. Why would they have that there? I'm sure it'll all become apparent when I read the manual again, but yeah. So there we go. I'll just fire that up now, and as I say, it can't really go the position it's in because it needs to come off this way unless I move the feet back further, which I suppose I could do. It fouls at the back here, so it's got to be hanging off at the front. I may just turn it around 90 degrees and pop it in that way around. So anyway, we'll see, but yeah, I just wanted to show you that, and we'll now power it up. Actually, if I got it plugged in anyway, I might just power it up. Okay, so 3 seconds here. Oops. So the probe has extended. These bloody screens, you never know how to film them. I can hear some fan noise, not too bad. And there we go. There is a light up the top and there is a switch on the side, so we can... Well, that's not a bad... That is a... that's more of a warm white rather than... It's not bad at all. You see the difference? If I turn that, if I can reach the switch. Appreciate the auto exposure on this is adjusting it, but hopefully you can see that's quite a nice bright light. Yeah, very nice. Let's just run through these. Home, print, ready, settings, PLA, ABS, level, all sorts of firmware version, that's very useful. Print size, hardware version, oops, motion settings, Wi-Fi is on. Let's just move the axes. Actually, let's run it to, I'm just going to try the X. I don't know whether you can see that. I'm looking at the... So that is fine. Let's try Y. That is all good. Z. Yeah. That is all good. If I press home, let's see what happens. Absolutely nothing. Have to press it twice as usual. So let's hit the limit switch there. No, that can't go back all the way, unfortunately. That was a silly mistake. Got to pull that right the way forward. Might have to redo that. I imagine home is right at the back. Maybe, oh, it's not right at the back, is it? It's right at the front, idiot. So now we're doing the Z home. Should have levelled the bed first. In fact, I am going to cancel that, hopefully, which I can't. That's annoying, you can't cancel that. I suppose I can cancel it by just turning it off. In fact, I think I will do just that. Maybe you can't. No, can't access the anything else other than this home button. So if it stops in time. Yeah. Have we got a nozzle within? Yeah, we have, haven't we? So it's just doing its homing. We'll have to adjust that in a minute, but we're just getting the idea that everything is fine, which it is. Now we can get back to the other menus. So that's all good. So everything seems fine, and yeah, we'll just get the manual levelling done and go from there.